Welcome back to the Ruck and Roll Show with Adam Gaston and
Luke James.
We're back for season 2. Luke, how was your summer?
It was alright. How was yours?
Yeah, it was very good. Yeah, went on a couple of holidays here and there. Enjoyed quite a lot of the rugby as well.
Yeah.
Happened over the summer.
We've got a set.
We have a set finally. We've got a couple of wee plants here, one on this side, one on this side. Look, I'm a bit jealous. Luke's plant's a little bit bigger than mine. But sure, what can you do?
No comment.
Anyway, so look, do you want to talk us through the set before we get started in the rugby chat?
I brought everything apart from Adam's plant, but no, obviously. So I got my big Sharks flag. I got 2 of them. They were handed out at the Challenge Cup semi-final just for free because that's what the Sharks are like. Got my Wales vs South Africa scarf, which is the first Wales vs South Africa game that I went to that the Springboks won, which was in 2021.
That's quite surprising. How many have you been to?
3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 4, including Twickenham. But yeah, obviously dark times for the Springboks. Anyway, so we've got my World Cup ball, we've got tea, everything. Just new set, new.
And this little cap here, you were telling me about this cap that you've had for quite a long time. It's looking a wee bit worse for wear, but I think you've had it since you were 3, maybe?
Yeah, about 3 years old. It was my dad's before that. I nicked it off of him. And
as you do.
Yeah, so then it's been all over the world. I took it to Sweden last week for an exercise I was going on. And yeah, it's just, I mean, it needs a bit of a wash maybe, but it's old and worn. And, it's one of those things you always love. You've always got those few things.
Of course, yeah. Well, shall we get started into a rugby chat then?
I think we should.
Let's start.
I was going to say, it's the Currie Cup final today.
We're filming this on the Saturday.
We are filming this on a Saturday. So yes, it's the Currie Cup final. The Sharks are playing the Lions in Johannesburg in Ellis Park, the famous stadium. And it looks to be an absolute cracker if we look at the lineups. URC players from both teams. Players like Kewan Horn starring for the Lions, and for the Sharks, you have the baby box sensation, Lorenzo Julius. What happens there?
So could you explain to me and maybe some of the viewers, the Currie Cup, it's not your full strength team, is it? It's like a mix between like sort of up and coming stars and established teams, because obviously it's the Sharks, it's the Stormers, it's the Lions.
So it's the domestic league, so they go by different names. So the Stormers go by Western Province, which is their original names. They actually wear a blue and white hooped shirt. The Lions stay as, they become the Transvaal Lions. The Bulls are just the Bulls. The Sharks are the Sharks 15. So the Grickers and the Pumas and the Cheetahs, they're also part of it. And they all compete for the trophy. And for the Grickers, the Pumas, the Cheetahs, they're full strength sides. For the Sharks, for Western Province, for the Lions, it's a mix because it's a way to blood young talent before bringing them into the URC. So the Currie Cup, I mean, if you look at the previous squad for Currie Cup finals, players like Tendai Mtawarira, Pat Lambie, Bismarck Duplessis, they've all taken part in it. So it's
a real cultural thing, isn't it? It's not sort of part of the rugby world in the Southern Hemisphere, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely massive, and I think it's going to go down to the wire today, considering the semi-finals. Especially that Sharks Bulls one that went into extra time, and a 98th minute try from Trevor Nyakane won it for the Sharks. So it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. But let's get on to
the summer rugby. So we had a couple of internationals, obviously Ireland, South Africa, which is a big one for us. As you can wear, I'm wearing my Ulster jersey today. He's wearing his Sharks on the Currie Cup final day. So we're both repping our home teams here. But I think we should start first with that South Africa-Ireland game. I mean, the selection of games, 2 games, a drawn series.
Before we get into the details, on CUTV, did I not say I want to see a drop goal winner? I don't care if it's against my own team. I thought that was about the Sharks. I didn't expect a drop goal winner to happen against the Springboks. And it was glorious.
And to talk about that drop goal winner from Kieran Frawley, and maybe a wee bit about we'll touch on the tactical battle in a wee minute, but Kieran Frawley to come back from that disappointment of the Champions Cup final where he missed a drop goal, he missed a penalty, and then Toulouse obviously went on to win it, to come back and to do that and to show that mettle at that stage of the game, end the season, it's all on the line, it's all built up to this, and he's gone and come back. And Kieran Frawley's not really someone you look at Ireland. He's a great squad player because he's very versatile, very very good player. But are we sort of seeing sort of that sort of leadership to sort of take on that responsibility? I'm going to drop a goal here.
Every fly half dreams of it. Every fly half dreams.
He's not even fly half for them. Exactly.
But I think every player that can kick wants to do it. You dream as a kid, nailing a drop goal to win a World Cup or something. But yeah, in the moment, he made the right call, and it's disappointing for us. But all in all, I think it was deserved to be a drawn series. It was tight. Ireland played very hard. A lot of comments can be made on the officiating for both sides, but all in all, good series. Yeah. I think.
What do you make of the sort of tactical battle? So in that first game, you saw sort of the Springboks with that sort of rush defence. They sort of put Ireland under pressure. Ireland couldn't really handle it. They couldn't handle the power game. If you remember that last sort of scrum try, which they just completely overpowered them towards the end. How do you reckon Ireland sort of coped with that better in the second?
I think it was more a South African tactical mistake than an Irish gain. I mean, there are elements where Ireland did gain, of course, but I think South Africa made mistakes at the rucks. They let Ireland get away with things. They let Ireland be a bit more dirty in the rucks in the second game, holding down. The Springboks then let that get under their skin, and suddenly everything was a bit more panicked, a bit more because they felt that nothing was going their way, and then they made mistakes over mistake. And it's just one game where the Irish just, in that, where they played to the limit, and they outclassed the Springboks. That's all I can say. I think the rush defence is still proven to work, and I think they'll change that anytime soon.
Absolutely.
But we mustn't forget, Ireland were playing that game. Both teams were playing that game without a lot of key players. Ireland had just finished a full season, a Six Nations season, and same coaches, so they had a lot on their side. The Springboks were coming in. It was their third game back after just a warm-up game versus Wales. With completely new defence coach and attack coach. So for them to do that, I think,
So you think if was a more settled side, they wouldn't have...
I don't think it would have been I think it would have been the Springboks, you could see that their errors, they weren't entirely on it yet. As we've seen that against New Zealand as well, with the Geordie Barrett intercept try.
Yeah. Even the fact that they've come through that, I mean, they're still winning every single game, more or less. Well,
they've lost one game this season. They've won all 4 rugby championship matches, game against Wales and game against Ireland. So that's a team that's still learning and getting used to it. I'm looking forward to a future Ireland vs South Africa series where it's a bit more, both coaches are settled.
And I also probably, we sort of touched on this before, but like the 2-test series, it's not something that
we understand because of the World Cup, though.
You understand because of the World Cup and because of the fixture list being as jam-packed as it is. But I think just like a 3-test, you just won that 3rd test just to decide the series, especially when you get 2 sides that are of that level and they're so tight together.
Molly Stain, we just need you to nail it.
Yeah. So talking about the other ones, the All Blacks and England sort of ran the All Blacks coast twice.
England are showing a lot of promise. Young team again, being blood in a very interesting way, but I think everyone is sleeping on England.
But do you think that's in terms of, I know they went to New Zealand and they put up a really good showing and they were close in both games, but do you think with the amount of coaches that they have leaving, such as Felix Jones, do you think they can keep up that sort of
Felix Jones leaving
momentum?
Felix Jones leaving is an interesting one, but I think a lot of those coaches that have left have been coaching South Africa previously. I'm wondering if that's different styles of coaching, different players. That's maybe why not settled. I think if they pick a coach not from the Southern Hemisphere, if they get a top 14, the top 14 don't want to take a coach, but an English Premiership defence coach, or maybe even Franco Smith from Glasgow, they'll do a lot better. But there's a lot of promise in that squad, and I think the same for New Zealand. New coach, and they are playing well. They are playing really, really well. We can't sleep on New Zealand. As I said before, there are the 2 teams you never, ever sleep on because they're going to put up a fight, are New Zealand and the Springboks. And at the moment, I think New Zealand and England are going to be the ones in the autumn international that surprise everyone.
Yeah. And those are coming up in November, obviously. South Africa, they're going to Whitefield, and they're going to Wales, and they're going to Twickenham as well, isn't it?
That's the game I'm most worried for.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine so, given the sort of the state. And England's a hard team to play against, like a very hard team to play against. You know, they're rugged. It
depends who the Springboks have in the back line. Yeah. Well, if Sasha's playing, I think.
Sasha. He's developed a love for Sasha Feinberg.
Magulazulu. He's one of my favourite players purely because Eddie Jones offered him a spot in the England camp because he's a dual national, British South African. Yes, when he was a junior, and he said, no, I'll wait for my chance with the Springboks. And he plays like he's got 50 tests and he's only got 7, so yeah.
He's obviously come through in the Rugby Championship, but to touch on a lot sort of more other games in that sort of summer international period, you sort of seen Scotland, they went down and they did their thing in the Americas, and you know, we've discussed before how that's so great for the the growth of the game. But what do you make of Scotland? You know, that's probably to be expected.
Well,
they performed.
They poached another one of our players. They poached Sharks hooker, Dylan Richardson, who again you can guess where he was born, but I think it's because he had the 3-year residency permit. That's why they picked him. I think Scotland are looking good, but because obviously they didn't test themselves against the highest standard.
Can't really say much.
Can't say much. Yeah. I will say, Tier 2 Rugby, still looking good. I'm still excited. For those who like Pacific Nations Cup, the final is coming up, and it's Japan versus Fiji, and that's going to be a cracker. Eddie Jones is Japan. Yes, if they develop and keep on developing and play the pace they're playing at, they're going to run some Tier 1 teams from the Northern Hemisphere.
The next World Cup. Yeah.
And not even the next World Cup. When they come over for an autumn test, they'll push England. They could push France at scrum time. Not scrum time, sorry, ruck time.
Yeah.
Their ruck speed is mental. So a lot in Tier 2, I think, that you can take from Scotland is actually Canada. They need to get rid of Kingsley Jones. They just need to. America, not doing as bad as people expected, but again, they're hosting a World Cup in 7 years. Got to get on it.
Yeah, they need to develop that.
Uruguay, looking awesome. Can't wait to see them play more.
They're always fun to watch. I remember them against France in the World Cup.
They almost won that game.
They ran them very close in that game. They're a very sort of dynamic attacking team.
Good fun as well. So yeah, a lot to talk about with Tier 2, and I assume that in the future, the Ruck and Roll Show, we're going to be doing a lot of Tier 2 rugby, aren't we?
Hopefully.
Because also, you know, my love for Georgian rugby at the moment is
the big scrums. I know you love a scrum. Touching on the last sort of, if you're talking about the home nations, Wales went down 2-0 and down under.
I refuse to accept the Reds win as an international win. So Wales haven't won an international match since the Rugby World Cup. Get rid of Gatlin. That's all I can say. Gatlin, it's the wrong coach with the wrong playing group. It's a toxic environment, and it's an old game that doesn't work in the modern part of rugby. He's using a strategy that he was using in 2015. It's good, and it was very good then. Doesn't apply now. All the coaches know how it works.
When you said this back in February, March time, when they were struggling in the Six Nations, they had the wooden spoon in that competition. I sort of said, yeah, we did watch that game. That was a good game to go to be fair. Not for Wales, obviously, but the Italians were on good form that day. But I think with Gatland, he's achieved so much in the game, and it's hard to sort of say when Wales have such a young side, you need that steady hand of Gatland, and the experience that he brings to make up for the experience that perhaps the playing squad lacks in terms of international caps, because they've had such an exodus of players in the last year. But at the same time, you sort of look at it and do Wales need a wee bit more of a dynamic sort of...
They need a Franco Smith, they need a coach. Jerry Flannery type of coach. They can't have, even a Steve Hansen, Gatlin is gone. I can't see him bringing Wales to doing well in the next World Cup because he's just got that same game plan. He refuses to innovate. What we're forgetting is he spent 6 months in Super Rugby and was asked to leave the coaching team and came back to Wales. He wasn't even head coach. So that
I'm very sure he was head coach of the Chiefs.
Was the Chiefs he was head coach? I thought it was defence coach. I might be wrong there then.
No, I think he was the head coach of the Chiefs.
They had a poor season, very poor season under him. I just don't think, coaches reach a point where they just need to retire. Peter de Villiers did it after the 2009 Lions tour. That was the perfect time, leave on a high. He needs to leave now before he pushes Wales further down a spiral where the game is completely crashing. Welsh rugby needs a strong coach who is innovating, not going back to past techniques that don't really work. I can see him justifying...
What techniques are used? Is it the kicking game?
The kicking game is outdated because a lot of teams know how to counter it. The running, his attack and defence both have gaping holes in them. And it's not like it's unpredictable. What they need is a coach who will rip up the rule book and say, this is what we're doing now. We're going to have a bit of fun. We're going to try something completely different. We're going to go back to the basics and we'll win. I would completely justify
I always wonder whether Wales have the talent, the firepower currently to compete with other tier 1 nations like, Australia, I think, are on a sort of similar trajectory.
Wouldn't say that after this morning's game.
Well, I suppose so. Rugby Championship, but I think they're also building with quite a young side.
But their coach is more innovative in Joe Schmidt. He's not going back to the previous way he coached Ireland. He's gone to a very different dynamic form that works for a young team. So I think it's really, really down to Gaston leaving and a new coach coming in who's much better for this Welsh side. I could justify it. I could see them justifying it, and it's going to sound harsh. Had they won a bronze medal in 2019, I could see them justifying it. And this is going to sound very harsh for the Northern Hemisphere viewers, but Grand Slams don't mean much on the big stage when you're competing at the big events. Ireland have how many Grand Slams?
It's 4 now.
And how many quarterfinals have they gone through?
I refuse to answer that question.
My point is that Gavin's won however many Grand Slams, but he still hasn't done well enough with an extremely strong Welsh side.
I would disagree with that at a World Cup level. I think he's taken them further than any other minus England Northern Hemisphere side has ever gone in World Cups.
No, you're wrong. France have reached 3 finals. And let's not forget...
Wales are a small nation,
Yeah, but
they produce... they punch above the weight in terms of the talent.
So is New Zealand.
I don't think you should damage the legacy of...
But I don't...
Just because...
Just putting him on
but yeah, I know. But I don't think you can damage Warren Gatland's legacy because of what's doing now. Because I think he has had a fantastic reign.
He has had a very fantastic reign.
Coach.
But he's also... As I said, it worked then. 2019, they pushed the Springboks to the limit, and that was a brilliant, brilliant game of rugby.
Yeah.
That wouldn't work now. That entire game plan would be completely undone because the Springboks have evolved, and he hasn't. There's no point being stuck in your ways and going down the same cycle and eventually becoming a tier 2 team.
Mm-hmm.
Wales need a stronger, more dynamic coach. And I think now it's the time to talk about the Rugby Championship.
Yeah, that was a very smooth segue from you.
I know, I'm getting better at this. I'm getting better at this rather than just being rugby.
Takes practice.
It does.
Yeah. But, so the Rugby Championship, obviously, there's a couple of games on this morning as we're recording this on the Saturday. The 5th round of the Rugby Championship.
New Zealand 31, Australia 28. Australia bounced back from 28-14 down to almost beat the All Blacks, for a struggling Australian team. Yeah. The only thing I would say is New Zealand haven't scored points in the last 20 minutes of the last 5 matches they've played.
And that's quite unlike them, really, because they were always a very good side historically, scoring late in the first half, late in the second half.
Exactly, and it's worrying, but also Australia, the push that they have, this is awesome. So
we've got that Argentina-South Africa game tonight as well. That will I think
That's gonna be spicy.
Unless they've already clinched it.
No, it's 10 p.m. kickoff.
This will decide if South Africa win this game.
So South Africa get a bonus point. So all South Africa have to do to secure a rugby championship is a bonus point over the next 2 games. Knowing South Africa though, and knowing the team they've lined up, they're going to try and run it. And the one thing I would say, they're playing in a football stadium. For those who don't realise, playing on a football ground is very different to playing on a normal rugby turf.
Estadio Único Madre de Ciudades Santiago.
Estadio Único Madre de Ciudades Santiago.
Yeah, we've definitely butchered that. But so you mentioned about the sort of younger team they've gone for. So what talking about South Africa first, because they look to win this championship for the first time since 2019. What have you made of their performances sort of developing on from the Ireland tests?
Against Australia, they showed signs of brilliance. Against New Zealand, they showed ultimate brilliance. They
showed grit and determination. And they showed everything which South Africa is so good at, which is just grinding out results, managing a game, kicking well. You've got Sasha Feinberg. I'm going to get this eventually.
Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu.
Okay, I thought you were going to let me try it.
No,
it's okay. Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu. There
you go.
Okay. I'll practice it off the show, but yeah. So you got him coming in at 10, and Colby's playing fantastically well.
He's the line-up take. He's
doing all sorts. He's putting into the line out. He's putting into the scrums. He is an absolute.
He's bumping off locks like he's a flank. He's best player in the world. Not going to start this discussion now, but I think the unsung hero is Grant Williams at 9, and Kwako Smith.
He's very quick off the mark, isn't he?
He's as fast as Colby.
Oh. Well, certainly over I'd say probably it's just, I was going to say certainly over the first 10, 15 yards, he's so quick, and sort of seeing that in around the sort of ruck towards the end, it was tiring.
And he scored that try, and you saw, he was making meters, and his passing accuracy has been brilliant. There's a lot of players there that we talk about, there's also players we don't.
What about, I'm going to butcher this again, Errol Lowe?
Elric Lowe.
Elric
Lowe, I think, is the future. He's a young player. Early 20s, absolute unit for the Bulls. And I'll say it here on the show, future all-timer for the Springboks.
You think so? Alongside Sasha at 10.
Sasha at 10, Grant Williams at 9. Listen, Pollard and Sasha will be the main fly halves going to the next World Cup. There's no doubt in my mind. You want Pollard because big games.
Yeah, he is one of the best boots in the game, from the tee and managing the game as well.
He's the best player to have in your side in a semi-final, quarter-final, final situation, because he can just keep the pressure under his nerves.
Yeah.
But Sasha, I think, is developing as a player. Grant Williams is really developing as a young player. But also, Curly Aronsa, Ox, Afulele Fassi. He's stepping up, and we're also forgetting a player that hasn't played for the Springboks yet, is Damien Willemse.
That's it, the 2-time 25-year-old World Cup winner.
Of course, and Canan Moody.
That's it.
It's just you reading off names off a list.
The back 3 options, and even you got Sasha who could play 15. You got the back
12.
Yeah, exactly. The options that you have,
Andre Esterhazen at centre. Canan Moody can play centre. There's a lot of guys coming through that can, Lorenzo Julius will get a call up soon.
Lucanio Am's finding a bit of form as well.
He's coming back post-injury. There's just so much in that squad.
Yeah.
And I think when we look at Argentina are a good team. But, they're sort of, I'd say they're about 6th in the world at the moment. They're behind England, England, France, Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa.
Yeah.
If I was to order it. I just think a lot of people might say Ireland should be higher, but...
Would you give them much of a chance against South Africa in either game?
It's rugby. It's Argentina.
It's Argentina.
Anything can happen.
If one side can do it, can grind out a result, as we've seen them against New Zealand, it is Argentina. They've got that grit.
But I also think that back line is looking so spicy. And Rossi has used 6 different back lines this year.
Yeah. So remind me of the back line?
So the back three, is. I'm gonna have to check this because I've forgotten it. He's done so many different back line options. This is I've got to actually find out my phone now. So if I remember, what is it? Bok Rugby. There we go. The squad, the back line is the back three is Mapimpi, Aronson, and Fassi. Fassi is young and he's a good player. We've seen him, for the Sharks. He's been excellent. He was on fire in the Challenge Cup final. But Pimpy recently became a father, which surprised everyone because nobody knew he was married, which is awesome. Aronson, the butcher,
super.
His strike rate is mental. And also on the bench, Jaden Hendricks and Mani Labok. We mustn't forget those two.
I know that all sounds like really, really like a strong side, but any side the Springboks put out is a strong side.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see Argentina beating, especially that starting lineup. Kobus Reinach and Andre Pollard 9 and 10.
Yeah.
But also Evan Etzebeth off the bench to become the joint most capped ever Springbok.
That's right, and obviously we had Victor Matfield saying this week that he's happy that his record is going to be overtaken by the greatest Bok of all time. What do you make of that, then?
It's almost accurate. It's so tight.
Certainly of his generation.
Of his generation, Etzebeth is possibly, I'd say, if you made a starting 15 of the best of this last playing generation, and you pick the locks, it'd be Sam Whitelock and Evan Etzebeth. Just have to. Peter Steph-Dutoy on the flank. But I'm lost for words because it's quite hard to pick a player over the Springbok history. Because it's not like a case of, for England it's very clearly Johnny Wilkinson. For New Zealand, there's a bit of a fight like Mawononu, but let's face it, Dan Carter has to be.
Or Richard McCaw, but probably Dan Carter.
It's got to be Dan Carter. But the Springboks, because it was that, it's just like, it's a bit like you've got Jacques Fourie, Joost van der Westerhuizen, Farida Priya. Siya Kolisi is definitely the greatest captain, not only the Springboks have ever had, but there's just Peter Steph-Dutoy is up there. Morné Steyn. There's just a list of names. Nas Boerta, Chester Williams. It's just so many names through the team's history that have meant so much.
Mm-hmm.
And
so much success as well.
Keith Boerta, Victor Matfield himself, Jean de Villiers, Brian Habana, who I think we can agree is one
of the best wingers
ever.
Absolutely.
But you know what? I'll give it Evan Etzebeth, greatest
Springbok ever.
I'm going to say it.
You've heard it here first, folks. We'll move on to the other side. So we touched on Argentina and South Africa who play tonight. You obviously mentioned that game, that Australia-New Zealand game this morning. Australia fighting back from 14 points down to, well, they didn't win the game obviously, but they showed a lot of fight there. Where do they sit after
couple of ranks below
5 games in the Rugby Championship and the Test series win against Wales?
Couple of ranks below Argentina, but not as bad as everyone thinks. They're building. Young team, they're building, restructuring, new coach. So I think there's not much to say.
There's been discussions had about sort of the Lions Test coming up next year and whether that can still be a competitive Test series, with the way Australia are maybe not the side they once were.
We're a year out from the Lions tour. The Springboks rebuilt from 7th in the world to win the World Cup in 18 months. Lions tour, we don't know how good Andy Farrell's going to be with the Lions team. All I'm saying is never, ever sleep on a team when it comes to a big game, especially Australia or a Southern Hemisphere side, because they know how to win it. Let's not forget Australia, World Cup silver final, World Cup silver medal 2015.
2015 is a long time ago though.
I know, but coach-wise, Joe Schmidt, not bad.
They've certainly got the right man, I think, to try and rebuild that up, because look at what he did with Ireland.
Exactly. But I don't know. It will be interesting to see. I think there's not much to say on Australia and New Zealand. We've already spoken about saying they're developing new coach, new format.
What are your thoughts of Damien McKenzie at 10? Is that something?
Bring back Mo'unga. You need Richie Mo'unga. He's not. I know you're a Damien McKenzie fan.
I'm a big Damien McKenzie fan.
I just think Mo'unga is a little bit better.
I think in terms of who would I rather watch, to be fair, Mom has a lot to watch as well.
You can see Mackenzie at fullback, but then again, actually, I'd drop Mackenzie, put Will Jordan at fullback, and Barrett at 10. Barrett, yeah. Bowden Barrett, I still think, over the last
he hasn't played in that 10 jersey for a very, very long time.
Internationally, no, because they've been experimenting with 10s. For the Blues, all the time. So, we're forgetting, and let's not forget Bowden Barrett's kicking game is mental.
I actually prefer the sort of the long at 10, Barrett at 15 sort of.
I can see,
Mackenzie to come off and sort of come on and change the game. That's the way I would do it.
I'd agree with that, but I also think New Zealand need a 10 that they can rely to kick off, and Bowden Barrett and Geordie Barrett are the guys you kick with.
I think Mo'unga's a pretty good kicker. I think Geordie Barrett's probably a better kicker. I'm not sure Bowden is from the tee. Hand, he's fantastic.
And that's why you need him. And we saw how good he was against England. And I think New Zealand, up front, they're still doing well. Arnie Surveyor, one of the best over the ball in the world. So New Zealand, looking good. Or I think just bring on the Autumn International and see who they steamroll. Shall we move on to club rugby because time is getting short?
Time is getting short. So we're going to do our predictions for this year. Winners of the various competitions: the Premiership, the ERC, the Top 14, and then the Super Rugby, and then the 2 cup competitions in the Northern Hemisphere, Champions and Challenge Cup.
Should we start with Super Rugby?
Yeah, let's start with Super Rugby. Who do you have?
So I've got the Chiefs winning it. I just think they will. There's not much to say about it.
Who'd be your player of that competition?
Arnie Surveyor for Moana Pacifica.
That's alright. That's a big move. That's a big move that's happened as well.
Yeah, it's a massive move, but I think that pretty much just goes as said. Arnie Surveyor, one of the best players in the world. So, who do you think?
I'm also going to say the Chiefs, just after losing out last year. I think they'll come back. They've got a good, strong side. And Damien McKenzie at 10 for them would be the player of the season. The Premiership, the English Premiership.
I've got Bath. And I'm going to go Thomas Dutoy.
So you had those two Premiership games last night. Bristol beating Newcastle 24-3, and then Bath beating the champions 38-16 quite convincingly. Finn Russell working his magic. Joe Cook and Singer back on the score sheet.
I would have had Finn Russell up top, but I just think Thomas Dutoy had a good season last season. He's been doing really, really well under Johan van Gaan. We'll see what he does, and I quite like him.
Yeah, I would also go for Bath there, but I'm going to go for Ollie Lawrence.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think he's a good, solid player. I feel like he's on that cusp of sort of nailing down that 12 spot for England, in my opinion. The ERC? The Bulls.
Formally I'm going to say the Bulls. Obviously I'm praying it's the Sharks, but Jake White, he's just so good. And my surprise player has to be Keenan Moody, also the best player. I think people are sleeping on Keenan Moody. He's being mentored by the assist king, Willie LaRue at the Bulls. And his running play is mental. Him and Arnster.
Yeah, and powerful, dynamic runner.
He's just, he's got a lot of future ahead of him. So, yeah, that's who I'm going to say. And you?
I'm going to go for the Bulls as well. I think they've got probably the strongest, most settled side. Leinster potentially, but again, can you really predict Leinster winning? Because given the last couple of finals that they've been in, and semi-finals, they've sort of not really lived up to what we know they can be. So I'm going to go for the Bulls. I'm going to go for Jack Crowley at 10 for Munster, because I feel like he's on that stage of development of, I think he's already basically nailed down that 10 shirt for Ireland. Munster, I think, can have a good season. They've got a good, strong side this year. I don't think they'll win it. I think the Bulls will win it, but I think they'll have a good season and he will be a part of that. Top 14.
I'm just going to go with the basics. It's going to be Toulouse. It's going to be Toulouse. Player of the season is either going to be Romain Untermag or Antoine Dupont. I think it's quite nailed up. I know you have a different opinion than me.
I have. I've gone sort of slightly left field. I think sort of with La Rochelle, they sort of didn't have as good a season last year, but they've got still quite a settled side. I think with Toulouse going for another Champions Cup, I would imagine would be their priority.
Still wrapped up this last top 14, so
Yeah, well, that is true. I just sort of feel like Ronan O'Gara will want to come back and prove something. So I think La Rochelle will win the top 14. I'm going for Henry Arundel of Racing 92.
England need to bring him in on a special contract because he's so good. He can't just be playing club.
Yeah, it's quite similar with him and Jack Willis, where you've got two of like this sort of shining lights of sort of the English rugby game. You know, so much potential, so much talent.
Farrell going off now.
On the other end of the spectrum, Owen Farrell, and then you've obviously got all that, and we'll talk about the specialised contracts later, but that's.
I think in another show we'll do big ones for contracts, but I think Challenge Cup, mine's a bit more close to home for me. I'm going to go with the Lions. I think they're sleeping giants, that team. I think everyone is saying, they've overlooked them this past couple of URC seasons. They're in the Currie Cup final today. You're a good team, so just be wary, be wary of the Lions.
They're a dangerous side, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you saw them against teams like Leinster last year, really putting on a show, even though it was perhaps a weaker Leinster side, but they've got the potential to do that.
And my player is going to be from the Lions. His name escapes me now. It is it's the number 7 actually. It's Esterhazen. He's a former Sevens player, very very strong player. He's come across to play in 15. I think he's going for the Springboks. Don't know if he'll do good. He's like a massive version of Quacker. He's like 6'5" Quacker Smith. He's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to go for the Ospreys personally. I think the Ospreys are a great side. I think they overperformed last season really. With you look at the other sides in Wales. I think they've really shown a lot of fight and determination. They finished in the quarterfinals of the URC, so I think with the makeup of that competition, the Ospreys are one of the stronger sides in my opinion.
I'm just going to check the player name. Carry on talking.
Okay. And Jack Morgan, the number 7 and captain now. I believe he'll be the player of the tournament.
I think it's going to be very, very good. And no, I'm wrong. Sorry, it's is it JC? Yes, it's JC Pretorius is the name. Sorry, not Esterhazen. Esterhazen still playing. JC Pretorius.
Champions Cup.
Toulouse.
And player of the tournament.
Well, obviously, okay, I said Toulouse. I want the Sharks to win, of course, but let's be realistic. Although if the Sharks win it, I'm going to go mental. Champions Cup, player of the tournament. I think Arceus Neyman from Leinster. I think it'll be a repeat final, and Arceus Neyman's going to stand out at Leinster. I think with Jacques Nienaber.
But you don't think that'll be enough to get them over the line?
No.
I think that's a big signing for them. That's a huge signing. To take him from Munster as well is only an added bonus. I'm going to go for Toulouse and Roman Intimac because he's back from injury and he's going to develop into that. But that is all our predictions for the season.
Should we do one final story then?
Yeah, well, we can run through a couple of stories in the world of rugby. We've got we've got the British-Irish League merger.
So that's
neither of us are huge fans of that.
No, I mean it's a big detail thing. On another episode, we can go really talk about it because I think it's so complex, but I don't think it's going to work. The other thing was Bundy Aki becoming an Irish citizen, which I think is awesome. Really, really deserves it. He's been playing wonderful rugby for Ireland for the past few years.
Yeah, and he's really he's really been welcomed into the Irish culture. I know how much he loves it.
He's proud of it. And he's very, very proud to be Irish. So I think that's awesome.
That's great. So we got a bit more of a sort of, distasteful story, I guess you could say, with the Israel Dag and Scott Stevenson taking a dig at Razzie Erasmus.
Yeah, they were comparing him to Jabba the Hutt and the Baron Harkonnen from June because of his weight, and they didn't back down. They kept on, when they were asked to apologise for it, they kept on going. And what people didn't realise, and maybe they didn't know, but Rossi has chronic illness that means he's going to put on more weight, and that's why he looks a bit sickly. So it's just a bit of a distasteful comment that they could have apologised for and they refused to, and that's what upsets me.
Yeah. Well, it's caused quite a stir online from Springboks fans who are obviously rightfully
international fans, really. Yeah, everyone's sort of saying, just be nice. It's rugby. We're not supposed to be going at each other like this.
Yeah, well, it's disappointing to see that. I suppose it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment, but there is a line for these things, and you got to take into account people's situations and things like this. But well, that was a couple of stories from the world of rugby. And I'm just going to finish on a new segment on the show, Luke's Ludicrous Tale of the Week.
Okay.
So this is a bit of a interesting story that Luke has found during the week in the world of rugby. What do you have for us this week?
Well, I always go on rugby Twitter because I'm sad, and I love the Pro D2, which is the French second division league. Now, for those who don't know the Pro D2 that well, it started off last week with a yellow card in the first 17 minutes of the match, and everyone was surprised it took 17 minutes for a yellow card. In fact, it's had games where well over 50 cards happened, if I'm right. I might be wrong there. That's what I've seen. Squidge Rugby has also opened my eyes to how good the Pro D2 is. But one of the analysts on Twitter, EK Rugby Analysis, who's very, very good, check out their page. They are awesome, and the level of detail they go into is spectacular. And they had a whole cheesecake, large one, not one of those small ones you get at Marks, like a proper one they baked themselves, and they had a slice for every yellow card or red card that was given out.
How big were these slices?
Big enough, shall we say? Sizable is the way I portray it. And 18 slices after one round of rugby. Given in mind there were 8 matches, 18 slices of cheesecake.
Wow.
Now, I love, seeing a bit of, action and going on, a bit of fighting. 18 cards in the space of one round. That's over 2 a match.
That is wild, and that was a very interesting story.
I think the French are brilliant. I need to watch more Pro D2.
He's a huge fan of the Pro D2. I need to start watching it myself, really. We've got Courtney Laws, and a number of other players.
He's playing for Brive at the moment.
Yeah.
Listen, just watch the Pro D2.
That's the moral of the story.
That's the entire episode is built up for just watch the Pro D2. And absolutely. I am now very scared because in a couple of hours Sharks play the Currie Cup final and then the Springboks play tonight. So my nerves and my heart's
so we're gonna leave the show there. Episode 1 of the Ruck and Roll Show for season 2. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for all this.
Look, thanks for putting up with me for this one. We'll be developing over time. We'll see what happens. We've got a lot to talk about and a very exciting season. And we'll see you all later.
See you later. Thanks very much.
Bye.